Right, let's go.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to episode 16 of the Just Discourse Podcast. You are listening to Max Smith and Matt de la Harpe. Hello, my friend. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. How are you, bud?
Yeah, doing all good, all good. How's your week treating you?
All good, mate. Can't complain. Still building, learning,
Excellent.
growing.
Excellent. That's what we
What
like to
about
hear.
you?
Yeah, it's going good. I was doing a pad work session yesterday morning, and I've actually got a massive ass bruise on my elbow from it.
What did you hit?
Just the pads.
Oh, serious?
Literally just the pads, yeah. But I was there like this morning. I was like, oh Jesus! But it's like a nice big lump on my arm.
Going too hard as usual.
Nah, it feels good, brother. It feels very, very good.
Good.
What did you want to start with, my friend? You said there was something going on at the minute, or trending, if you will.
Well, yeah. Well, I just thought this is a quite a funny thing, and it would only happen in this day and age. We've got the feud between Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. So it all started. I've got limited knowledge of what happened, but I've been reading into it over the last couple of days. I know they've been feuding on Twitter for a while, starting with Facebook, I think it was a Facebook satellite that they used SpaceX to obviously shoot into the atmosphere, and the rocket exploded, basically destroying the satellite, and that just pissed off old Zuck, and he wasn't very pleased. And I don't think Musk was really that sympathetic about it, other than saying that, of course, we'll give you a free trip on the next one. Whether that's happened or not, I don't know. I think there's been a lot of back and forth with the threads on Instagram, which is effectively a rip-off of Twitter. And Elon is obviously not very happy with that, because he's a very strong-minded business leader, and of course he believes that he's using his intellectual property, as to say, to build up his own business, which, looking at it, it is fairly similar in the ideas. And of course Elon has fired a load of the employees from Twitter, which I believe Zuckerberg has taken on. So it would make sense that there's some kind of proprietary knowledge that is being passed over from one to the other.
Ah, that's interesting. Okay.
To the point where he is looking to sue Facebook now.
Nice.
And the thing that interested me the most, or the most exciting part, whether this will happen or not, I don't know, but I think it would be fantastic, is they are talking about having a UFC fight. And I think it's actually UFC 300.
Oh, there you go.
It's supposedly booked. Dana White has been involved in saying that it's 100% serious, and everybody involved wants to crack on with it. But I'd pay to see that fight 100%. I don't know about you.
On the face of it, I think that sounds awesome. The question is, what is then the resolution after that? What prize goes to the victor would be my question.
I think it's just a dick swinging contest, isn't it?
It is, but if we're going to do that, I would prefer Elon's suggestion to actually measure dicks. I prefer that. I think, yeah, fair play, mate. And then just leave it at that.
Well, I just think, especially in this day and age, it's a very 2023 thing, isn't it? 2 billionaires, some of the richest guys in the world, especially in America, to actually have a cage fight match. Because back in the day, even back as far as 5 years ago, the captains of industry, they would always be extremely professional, no matter what the scenario is.
So from an entertainment value, you're absolutely right. That would be very entertaining. But if I'm putting my anarchist hat on, I'm saying there's nothing, unless they specify stakes. There's no value in me watching that besides paying the UFC more money or paying Facebook and Twitter. Because the victor, I would imagine what would happen, that whoever won, their stock price would go up.
Yeah. Well, so from my side, I would argue that I actually don't care who wins that fight. I just think it'd be fantastic to see two, let's be honest, nerdy-ish guys fighting it out just because they're these quite famous people.
Oh, I mean, if I was to pick anyone to win, it would be Elon. I don't want Zuckerberg to win.
No, I want Elon to win, but
Yeah.
I would actually put my money on Zuckerberg just because he's got
Yes.
more fighting experience.
He's got more fighting experience. He's more physical overall. He goes like windsurfing, kite surfing. He does
12 years younger.
12 years younger. He's he does a lot of calisthenic work as well. So yeah, on actually winning, it'd be him. But I think because like Elon, at least Elon, he
has a special move.
He's a special move just in life in general, and how he thinks. He's much more personable and he just dicks around. Whereas like, for people to not like Elon, it's because he doesn't follow the trend. He doesn't follow the establishment. Whereas Zuck is very much part of the establishment, even though they have those fake Congress hearings where they're asking him stupid questions about like the source code, and then he's like, "You people don't know what you're asking. You're asking stupid questions." And Zuckerberg's just very, as the CEO and founder of Facebook, not even going into the controversy about whether he founded it or not, or stole it from someone. The fact that he created the business model and pioneered the technique of monetizing our personal information, immediately don't like that dude.
No.
Because of him, that's the reason we have all of these privacy settings, all of these GDPR stuff, because of this one man.
Yeah.
For everything, because of his gross data breach and sort of selling our details onto advertisers. And everything he's done has just been a rip-off of the existing things that are better, like Reels on Instagram, just copying TikTok.
Yeah.
Threads, just copying Twitter. Besides Instagram and Facebook, he hasn't created anything else. Well, it's not WhatsApp as well, but he hasn't got anything else that's like an original product. But then WhatsApp is just a glorified text platform, like Signal or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, so I've been speaking to a couple of people recently, mainly iPhones. People hate this. I'm an Android, always have been. Never had an iPhone.
He's just a bit of a bitch, you know.
Never had an iPhone. I think people that get iPhones buy an inferior product for more money, just so they look cool to their friends, and they can be like, "Oh, I've got an iPhone."
Oh,
honestly, it's actually sad, and it's a complete reflection of the world these days. Oh, look, I've got an iPhone, and it's actually shit.
I'd say it's actually the sidestep in all those points. I'm saying I don't think it's actually relevant anymore, because it absolutely used to be the case of like, oh, I've got the new 12 Plus or whatever. I don't think it's actually relevant anymore what sort of phone you've got, because it's not a.
They both look exactly the same.
It's that used to be where it was a massive like status symbol because you could afford it, but they're incredibly affordable in the same way that a car was incredibly affordable because you would just finance the phone the same way you finance a car. Whether that's the right thing or not, that's another conversation, but it's very easy to do. There's a guy, a customer I had a few years ago, and he was like, I hate the fact that phones, there are different phones. He's like, I would prefer it if there was just one phone, unbranded, and that was it. Then I just wouldn't have to think about it. I'll just have a phone, and then I'll just replace it when it breaks, and that's it.
Most of these days, when you got a case on it, no one really knows. Only the people that are the iPhone or Android whores know exactly what you got and actually care about it.
Well, yeah, it doesn't. If you've got a phone, it doesn't really matter what phone it is, does it? As long as it works. In any case, whether it to be someone who is an iPhone advocate or an iPhone hater, it's kind of an irrelevant perspective,
See,
really.
I'm not an iPhone hater.
Sounds like it. What do you think? Do you got to think he sounds like a hater?
What I am is I'm a value hunter in life. I search for value in everything I do and use, and I've always found, as I mentioned, that Android are cheaper, plus they're better spec'd. So I can't bring myself to go and buy an iPhone. Now, the reason I made that comment is because I don't go up to iPhone users and tell them that information because I'm not interested. I bought the phone because that's what I wanted. But I have iPhone users actively come up to me and say, oh, why have you got an Android? Are you a poor or something like that? Or like blah, 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 blah. And it makes me laugh because, as I say, I believe a lot of people, not everyone, but a lot of people see it as some type of status symbol that they've got an Apple. And I really couldn't give a flying fuck about it.
Yeah, I prefer having a pear more than an apple.
Oh yeah,
That's me.
Exactly. Yeah. I prefer pears.
Well, do you know why I got this phone? This one here.
Go on. Is it an apple?
What do you mean it's an apple? I'm using. What was that fucking symbol right there, mate?
Yeah, that's the Mac. I would argue with the Macs because the Mac, there is no other product on the market that even comes close. Obviously, I've got a Samsung computer and I've got a Mac as well. Both laptops, one's personal, one's for work.
Yep.
And the Mac is it's aluminium. It's beautifully designed. For me, that's a value that I would purchase and did purchase.
So I got the my iPhone 2020 because when I first started doing my podcast, I was doing it on a Samsung Galaxy S10 and I had a HP laptop, and the processing power.
So you're a convert, are you?
Yeah, the processing power on all of them was appalling because I'm handling this kind of data.
Really?
Yeah, terrible. It took an entire day to process a video, like 24 straight hours on the computer. I was like, this is ridiculous. And that's not even talking about how long it takes.
Is that because you were going from Samsung to Apple, though?
No. So Android phone.
Yeah.
HP laptop. So those are basically both Android operating systems, basically. And yeah, taking an entire day. I was running out of space on my phone. It was pixelated. It was dropping out. The sound was coming in and out. Actually, to be fair, the video quality actually was quite good, but just the whole process, I was like, this is so inefficient. So I had an iPhone 8 already. I was like, cool, I've got that. And then I got the MacBook and AirDrop, where previously it would take me a few hours to transfer the file from one thing to the other. A minute.
Really?
Yeah, just like almost instantaneous straight over, and I can process from start to end the whole video, upload it in an hour and a half.
Interesting.
And I was like, fantastic, that is so efficient for me, which when I was in lockdown, I was doing 3 or 4 a day.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so much more convenient for me to smash it out. So that's the only reason that I went back to Apple and got the MacBook, is for this. Otherwise I probably would have stayed Android. So I think your point is valid, but because I've got friends who used to work for Apple, and they'd always say, even when I went initially, my initial when I was trying to purchase something, they were like, oh, okay, why do you want this stuff? I said, oh, it looks cool. They went, you don't want it then. Because they're like, these are brilliant tools for creatives. If it's just because you fancy the look of it, or because it's for business, they're like, don't get it. It's a waste of money.
Yeah. So
I think that's probably more the nuance there.
No, so yeah, I think they're fantastic products, and I always like the Mac computers always. And that's the only time I swear away. I've got a big chip now.
Yep, well done.
My Samsung iPad.
You're gonna have to get an iPad now, mate.
Which I actually think this looks better than an iPad. Again, it's kind of irrelevant how it looks because it's in a case. But again, because I've got the Samsung phone.
Yep.
Thing, it's similar to if you've got all Apple. It's all just integrated, isn't it? It goes over, so I can write all my notes on here, and it goes on there, goes on the laptop, etc., etc.
But the fact that we're having this conversation is a product of the natural competition that comes from these giant companies.
Yeah.
That you make rival products and you make rival businesses to then stimulate people, because people naturally divide based on personality type about what sort of thing you want to get. So yeah, that's why they say competition is always a good thing.
Yeah,
which it absolutely is, and it's better. Or for someone like me, I'm the absolute gold mine of a customer because I've gone back and forth multiple times.
Yeah, exactly. You switch them back up. But again, who really cares? It's just tech.
Exactly. which brings me on very nicely to my thought I was having earlier about how we need to ignore. There you go. We need to take break from our tech.
Yeah. Or
multiple breaks. Because there's the thing about how we have with a supercomputer in our pocket all the time, and all of these different avenues of YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, podcasts, audiobooks, Spotify, music, whatever. there's almost never an opportunity where we're not distracted or just not alone with our own thoughts. And it gets...
Which is completely different to a generation ago.
Yeah.
Whereas we never would have had that, we spoke about it before, the instant gratification from looking through, Instagram or TikTok or whatever it was.
Yeah.
We were always in the moment.
Because I actually noticed this phenomenon years ago, when I was with my ex. I remember spending just I was living with her, me and the dog. She was at work, I was at home, and I remember just being most of the day just at home on the Xbox, just listening to podcasts over and over. And I was like, yeah, this is brilliant because I'm chilling, I'm busy all the time, having time to myself, bit of Xbox, a bit of podcast, getting education while having some fun. Great, all good. And then I was like, okay, I need to take the dog out. But I was just like, okay, I probably shouldn't take. No, it wasn't. I shouldn't take. I run out of battery on my phone, and my charger was fucked. So I was like, oh great, so I got nothing to listen to. And I had this weird sort of stage of like panic almost. It was really bizarre because I was almost nervous to be without something, or to be without just something to listen to. And so I thought, okay, well, my phone's charging. I have no choice now. I just got to take my keys, take the dog, and go for a walk. It's only going to be half an hour. I'll be okay. So going down the road, we go up into the field. I let him off, and he just run around doing this thing. And the first few minutes, my brain, I had like a headache because it was like a withdrawal headache from just stimulus information coming in. And then...
And probably something to do with the microwaves coming off as well.
Oh, yeah, probably. I mean, I usually don't bring the microwave with me either. But... yeah, my brain, the headache slowly abated and went away, and then I just started having like this rush of thoughts, and like it was just epiphany after epiphany. I was like, oh wow, it was such a level of clarity that it was phenomenal, and I was just like, I kind of vanished. I kind of went away. It's like this like daydream. It felt like a daydream because there was so much information coming into my head of just how well my thoughts were all going, and then I snapped back to it, and I was like, oh shit, how long have I been out for? And I was like, only another 10 minutes had gone past. And I was like, this is crazy. Just the sheer amount of clarity I had, and just, I was actually, my brain was actually working, and it was actually producing productive thoughts. And I was like, this is incredible to actually take time away from stimulus, to actually be in your head and in your own thoughts. I'd gone from actually, in retrospect, I realised I was actually scared of my own thoughts. I was like, shit, I was scared of the silence, I was scared of being alone or wherever it was. But it was so freeing. It was incredible.
Well, I had it yesterday when I left my phone in my brother's car, and in between there, I went to the shop. My missus obviously ran in and grabbed something. I didn't have my phone with me. And usually the first thing you do is get your phone out, don't you? And have a look at it. And at first I was like, oh fuck, I haven't got my phone. And then I just thought, oh well, I'll just sit here then. And the first sort of 10 seconds, it was a bit like, this is odd. Like, this day and age, we're not really used to it. We've always got some type of stimuli being bombarded at us. And obviously after that 10 seconds, as you mentioned, it's sort of like, oh, I can really think about other things, whatever I want to think about. It's just strange to have that feeling, isn't it?
Yeah, initially, if you're so used to something, which is not to say that obviously that's not useful, because I get all of my education from podcasts, for example, and entertainment and humour from all of those things there, and they just keep my brain ticking over. But it's even those things that are educational, you need to have a break for, because you don't think about it because you're passively taking it in.
Yeah.
But if you're listening to back-to-back hour-long podcasts, it's the same thing as listening to back-to-back lectures.
Well, that's what I found. I used to just listen to podcasts all the time for a good 9 months straight. All I did was listen to podcasts, and then I got to a point where I wasn't really taking them in because I was literally just listening to them all the time. And I realised, and it sounds really sad, but especially in the sort of high level of life that we sort of push and pursue for, is you have to give yourself like little breaks in different ways. So what I would do is I switched to, on a Friday, I'd listen to just music, which I avoided for a long time because obviously we've said before, the subliminal programming and stuff like that you get from music, especially the music I listen to, I listen to a lot of rap and all that type of stuff. So you really listen to it and think, oh, this is actually pushing this stuff into my subconscious, and then it's going to start manifesting into the world. And as soon as I sort of realised that, I thought, maybe I shouldn't listen to that stuff.
You're saying that music is subliminally programming you?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, interesting perspective.
100%. It comes to the same as your fuck, I forgot the word now. But when you write something down and you keep going through it all the time to push it into your subconscious.
Very interesting point. Okay.
And if you listen to it all the time and then you're actually singing it as well, not only are you thinking it, thoughts physically create your reality, you're thinking it, but you're also singing it and saying it, put it into the world.
Okay, I'm going to give you a Vin Diesel quote.
Go on.
So, it's a film called Triple X.
I think you actually have to believe it, though, to have the congruence of it properly manifested.
Okay.
It's a little bit different, but some people obviously pursue that.
Yeah, so there's a film called Triple X where Vin Diesel plays a... what's he like? He's like a extreme adrenaline junkie, but just like at the extreme level where he just like jumps out of helicopters and shit. And there's one point where he steals a red Chevrolet Corvette from some asshole right at the beginning, and he's driving away in this car and he's like recording like this little video he's gonna send to this dude. He's like, stolen your car, and he's just like, you're such an idiot, like you want to ban rap music because you think it's corrupting the innocence of our youth. And he's just like, it's music, dick, and he just carries on. It's music.
It depends how you choose to listen to it.
Yeah, because it's like I would disagree, because if you listen to death metal, by the argument you're making, those people are going to go out and like brutally,
as I said,
eviscerate
it's
people.
What you choose to believe. Because I don't believe it. Obviously, I don't pursue it and stuff like that. But
yeah.
To a young, impressionable person who's trying to come up in the world, it's think about the music that our parents used to listen to, and how like it was all so chilled and that type of stuff, and then we see the difference in violence levels these days. If everyone, especially in London and even Reading, kids going around stabbing people all the time.
And your argument being that that's because of music.
That it's not only because of music. I think it's multiple factors all coming into one. Music being one of those factors. Not being able to discipline kids in school, one of the factors.
So I'm asking this because I don't know the answer. Are there songs promoting knife crime?
Yes.
Like what?
If you listen to any type of like trap music, or what was it I used to listen to, like Gets or P Money, or all those types of people.
Okay.
They're like, it's basically just violence.
I'm asking because I've never heard any of this,
Yeah.
so I don't know any of this. Okay. You do raise an interesting point there, because there's I love asking women this. If you ask almost any female, do you like The Weeknd? And almost all of them will say yes. And he's such an interesting case study just to try and break down as to why. So first of all, he's a dude. He's a very masculine dude, but he sings like a woman.
I've only heard a couple of his. I don't really.
Yeah. So singing like a man would be like Zach De La Rocha, like Rage Against the Machine, or a country singer or something like that. It's very masculine, and Nickelback, whatever. Whereas he sings very high pitched. It's like Adam Devine kind of thing. So it's a really sort of like high pitched sort of voices, or a masculine voice would be Stormzy, like the epitome, because it's so deep. Whereas The Weeknd's the other end of the spectrum there. So it's really effeminate. And then the subject matter is all incredibly sexual, really sexual, but also, which is why women like it. Also, if you actually listen to the lyrics, they're rather misogynistic.
Are they?
Yeah, and it's he's the sort of words he uses to describe women or female body parts. You're like, huh? So
right, okay.
so
that's strange.
so when I actually and I've said this to multiple females I've asked them this question. I said, you like, for his song Often, for example, anyone who hasn't heard it, listen to it. It's a very good song, but it's explicitly very sexual and incredibly objectifying. So I said to multiple women, they've all said the same answer. I said, do you like that song? They say yes. Why is that? They said it's very sexy. I'm like, okay. You know the lyrics? They're like, yes. What if someone were to say those lyrics to you? They said, I'd either hit them or run away. I'm like, that is so interesting that the fact that it's sung changes it completely. And also the fact that it is a guy who's clearly very masculine but sings like a woman. So interesting. But I think that's just the female mindset that they like that. It's
Yeah, I've never thought about it like that before.
Yeah, just give it an example. Just like yes, because the words he uses, you're like, my God, if I spoke like that to a woman, that's not going to end well. Whereas if I sung like that, probably ain't quite well.
I think a lot of people don't really, especially at first, they enjoy the beat.
Oh yeah, it's got great tunes.
And the music more than actually the lyrics, and then the lyrics become sort of secondary. And it's probably not till, because you understand the beat and you hear the beat and you remember the beat like straight away, don't you? But the lyrics you learn over time from constantly listening to it.
So I would agree with that, but that's because I'm a drummer. My hypothesis is that females pay more attention to lyrics than men do.
Probably, yeah.
So my hypothesis is that they're going to be paying more attention and they're going to pick up on it more. But again, it refers back to a thought I had years ago, which was, I still need to work out a way to cogently say this, which is the message is irrelevant. It's how it's conveyed that means everything.
Well, that's the same in life as well.
Oh, yes.
When you're having a conversation with someone.
Yes.
It's all about how you convey it.
Well, for example, you and I right now, we're approaching the music influencing people from two different perspectives. Now, we could have been much more combative against it. We could be yelling at each other and arguing quite aggressively, or we could have done it how we did it. Mm-hmm. Exact same message either way, but it's just two different ways of doing it. Just the first one, real bad. The one we actually did, all good because we're still talking.
Well, I think, again, especially with a lot of emotional people, let's do that. I always find that music invokes a lot of emotion for a lot of people, and they sort of identify with certain people in a certain way, or a certain culture, or a certain genre of music, and they make that as part of their identity, which I think is not so. It's quite a lot different now. But I think in the previous generations, you had mods, rockers. You were sort of one type of music, and that's how you dressed and identified and showed yourself in the world. We discussed it with Max previously. Is that these days everything's a lot more open because we're available to so much different music. I've got an eclectic taste in music. I will listen to everything from grime to pop to Elvis, jazz, all those types of things, which I think previously it was more of an identity thing. My point though about the emotional reaction to things, which I would say a good 70%, if not more, of people are not necessarily conscious intellectually, and therefore they always react emotionally. And somebody will probably take that as an attack, a personal attack on themselves when you mention something down those lines, because they identify with that music or how that feeling or how the music made them feel.
It's a mistake a lot of people make as a music as it is with ideas. People need to recognise that they are not their thoughts. Mm-hmm. They are not their ideas, but like their music taste, they attach their sense of self to what they think, which is ridiculous because a thought in your head is like a cloud in the sky. It's just passing through. Like, it's going to be gone in a certain amount of time. So to attach your identity to a cloud is stupid because it's by its very nature is inconsistent. It's not that it's transient. It's not there.
Yeah, and it's always I was just going to say transient.
Yeah.
But for me, I always find I'm always up for learning new things and changing and growing as a person. And to grow as a person, you have to admit when you're wrong. And I think a lot of people, one, don't want to change, or two, don't realise they have to change. And therefore they attach themselves to certain aspects in life. And they get cognitive dissonance if someone were to ever question that thought or that music, because they attach, as you said, their identity to that, and it's making them question it, which they don't want to. So they have the cognitive dissonance, but basically an argument in the head, which they're trying to avoid having.
So I had this exact issue about 10 years ago, where my ego would not let me accept when I've made a mistake. It was an ironclad resolve of that whatever I said or whatever I did was correct, because I was intelligent enough to not be wrong.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I think that's one thing we learn from being a teenager going into adulthood, is that, who is it that said, the only thing I know is that I know nothing?
Nietzsche, probably. I don't know.
I think it might have been Nietzsche.
Yeah, maybe. But I remember at the time, the girlfriend I was with at the time, if ever I was wrong, she would always point it out. To begin with, retroactively, I realised that she was trying to help me face it and help me learn and grow from it. But because I just refused to grow from it, she would just go, right, fuck you then, and just would always dig at me whenever I was wrong, just because it just pissed her off that I was just such a stubborn asshole.
And refused to see it.
And refused to see it, refused to grow, refused to accept I was wrong and grow from it.
And that's one thing I've learned, is you've always got to accept when you're wrong, because you end up fighting and arguing. Sometimes I always see it as like a literally downhill, not downhill, or like a fall when you're having these arguments. Is you start from like this level of fairly intellectual argument, and then because you're refusing, it gets more petty and petty and petty, and then by the time you've still refused to argue, you keep going and refuse to give up the argument, you end up being so ridiculous, and then it's too far to then come back to be like, okay, yeah, I was wrong.
Yeah.
Because you want to win the battle or whatever it is.
Well, it's the exact same thing of if you had the amount of things that you get wrong and don't address is the same issue you'd have as if you were to accrue a load of little tasks that you just procrastinated with. Yeah. So in the same way that if you had a to-do list and you just did like one at a time, tick it off, one at a time, tick it off, you're not going to end up with like 50 things to do on a Friday. It's the same thing with when you make a mistake. If you admit a mistake straight away, it's dealt with, it's off the table, it's gone, and that weight is off your head.
100%. Yeah.
Whereas
I feel the embarrassment grows the longer you try to avoid it and fight against it, and then you get to a point where you think, it's so embarrassing, I
can't afford to face it. It's going to be character destroying.
To give up this argument now. Yeah. And I think you're fairly similar to me. Is I learned, it took me longer than I would like to admit.
Likewise.
But that's all part of growing up, isn't it?
Yeah, and you have to.
When you have made a mistake, the best thing to do is realise a mistake, knock it on the head, sort out the problem, and then put a system in place in order for it to not happen again. Yeah. And then next time, I've always been one of these people, especially in the working environment, is you get something goes wrong, and you've always got that one person who's like, right, who did this? And they want to point blame, and straight away they want to point blame. I'm different in the fact that when something's gone wrong, first thing I do, it's not pointing blame because it's not productive in any way and it wastes time, is right, identify the problem. How did it happen? No, sorry, let me backtrack. You solve the problem, then you identify what created the problem, then you put a system in place for that problem not to happen again. And there's no point pointing fingers. Now, if you solve the problem, create a system so it doesn't happen again, and then that person continues to avoid using the system you've created, then that's when for me, a problem is created, and then I have to point fingers and be like, right, we've resolved this, and it keeps happening again because you're not using the system. Have you got a problem with the system? Is there a way you think you can improve the system? Or you just don't want to use the system? And usually if they don't want to use the system, they're not right for the place, and you need to move them on, basically.
It's so bizarre you say this, because I had this exact...
Without emotion as well.
Yes.
Because emotion is irrelevant in it.
Yeah, I had this exact scenario and thought process with a family member over the weekend. So they said they wanted to live somewhere. I said, cool, I'll pick up at this time and I'll take you. So I turned up as we agreed. And then they were a few minutes late, so no big deal. So then we went, dropped them off, and they didn't have a key, so I gave them my key. And then the next day I was going to come back later in the morning, and then they texted me later saying, "Oh, I haven't come home. You're going to have to wait for someone else, or just do something else throughout the day." And I was furious to begin with. But I thought, no, this is actually my fault because I didn't stipulate the condition under which I will give you a key. Yeah. I should have said that if I give you a key, then by doing this, you are going to be back home tonight, so that when I come home tomorrow, you can let me in, or you leave under the key of the mat, a key under the mat or whatever. So I was angry for about a minute, and then I was like, no, this is my fault because I didn't lay those terms out from there. Exactly. So I didn't do that. So I didn't put all the information out there, so that there was no reason for them not to do whatever. And so then in the future, I'll make sure that I will say, okay, cool. If I do this for you, then I need this for that, and then we can coexist together perfectly.
It's like we spoke about it before, is I can't control someone else's actions. I can only control my own.
Yeah.
And every time I come out of a situation, no matter how well I've done or how badly I've done, because I can't control the other person's reactions or how they're going to act, all I can do is make sure I improve to be better for the next time.
Yes.
And as you hit the nail on the head there is, right, okay, well, I can't control the fact that they've done what they've done, but next time I'm going to ensure that I put this process or this system in place mentally, verbally and physically so that this doesn't happen to me again, because at the end of the day, you're the one that lost out when you couldn't get in. So, right, next time this happens, I'm going to do this, but I need the key back on whatever day for whatever reason, so I can get back in the house. And if you fail to do that, you're the only one that's losing out. But if you put the process in properly and follow up and ensure that it happens, then you're not losing out. Right?
Exactly. And I made this exact mistake several months ago with the band, where as a drummer, I've got like 16 bits of kit. They've each got like 3. And I was getting angry at the end of the night when we're packing up. They packed their stuff up and they've already put it over there and they're doing their own thing now. And I'm still there getting angry about it, being like, why is no one helping me? And then when they're trying to talk to me, getting pissed off about it, or being like really passive aggressive and sarcastic or whatever, which is unusual for me because I was only in that state because I was frustrated and cranky or whatever. And then, going home, I was really annoyed. I was really angry. I was like, fuck them, whatever. They don't care about me or whatever. And then when I calmed down, I was like, no, I just hadn't made it clear about what I needed. I hadn't asked for help. It was entirely my fault. And so the next day, I then apologised to them and said, look, this is my fault because I didn't tell you guys what I needed from you. So that's why I was in a bad mood. I took it out on you. That wasn't fair on you because I didn't tell you that I needed help.
Mm-hmm. And so, then once you put that system on, that process in place where you ask for help or you explain what you expect of people, if they continually refuse to do that, then okay, well, I need to make a change. Again, I can only control myself and the people I surround myself with, so I need to make a change to do this and this.
Precisely. And since I had the conversation with them, good as gold.
And I've always found in these situations as well is, I don't know, you work with some people and they try and give as little as possible, and I probably wouldn't have admitted it at the time, but looking back, I can probably see that I was probably one of those people, along with most people when they're younger. You know, people are lazy and they can't be bothered to do things, and they want to give as little as possible and take as much as possible from a situation. Now, I found that the opposite of that is the best way to work, because if you give the most value to every situation you come into contact with, or every experience you have, one, you can walk away knowing, well, I've done the best I possibly could. I can always improve, so next time I need to do this, this and this in order to improve. And for example, in friendships, work relationships, anything like that, if you've given the most value to that situation, the other person is losing out if you decide to move on. And if they don't respect that, then cool, that's fine. I'll go find someone else who will respect that, especially in terms of business. When you're providing the best value possible, it would be stupid for your customer or whatever else to go somewhere else and use a different supplier or use this or blah, 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 blah. But if they do choose to do that, then you can walk away going, well, that's fine. Because you will always get the people that refuse, whether because they're embarrassed to come back and say, look, I made a mistake, or I didn't treat you right, blah, 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 blah. So if they walk away, if you go and find somewhere else, and you know that you've done the best you possibly can. Again, you're never going to be perfect, so you should always walk away and think, okay, could I have handled that situation better? What can I do next time in the future? When you experience it again, you're more, as we said before, experienced, competent, confidence. Once you've gained the experience, you've got the competence, and then you then have the confidence in that scenario to ask the right questions or push the right buttons to get the positive reaction that you need. And again, if you walk away knowing you've given everything you could, or you've done the job to the best of your ability, I found it even before when, like we said before about when people make mistakes. But if I make a mistake, I do whatever I can to avoid not admitting I'd made the mistake, because the person you're dealing with, 9 times out of 10, they can see you've made that mistake, and you avoiding it, their level of respect for you drops. And again, if you're coming up against 10 other people, you need to do something to stand out from them. As we said before, there's always going to be mistakes, but if once a mistake happens and is created, you put your hands up, look, fucked up there, look, this is what I'm going to do, this and this, to ensure this doesn't happen again. 9 times out of 10, the people you're dealing with will turn around and be like, yeah, mistakes happen. I'm happy with the way you've dealt with that situation. Obviously we're not happy that the situation has occurred, but the fact that you have taken the time to think about why it has happened and how you're going to avoid that from happening again, most people are like, yeah, that's fine. Good. I'm glad you did it. Whereas if you're coming up against people that, I get it all the time. Something goes wrong, there's a breakdown in communication. Solicitors in a estate agency, when we were dealing with it, were the world's worst at this, and this is what wound me up. You know how we say you can learn from negative experiences? I was watching the David Goggins and Chris Williamson podcast yesterday, and I can't remember the term they used, but it was a spot-on term, effectively learning from...
If you can't learn from what if you can't see something that you want to get, you can at least learn what you don't want to have.
Exactly. They used a specific term, but I can't remember what it was, but I'll find it out. But we used to get it all the time. So, say what you like about estate agents. I don't think 9 out of 10 properties sales would go through if you didn't have the estate agent chasing both sides. Because I would have it so many times. This happened probably 100 times while I was dealing with selling properties. I'd chase the solicitor. Right, what's the update? Well, I sent the buyer solicitor an email 4 weeks ago and I haven't heard back. And I'll be like, okay, well, do you know that they've received the email? Well, no, they should call me if they haven't received the email. Well, how do you know that they, have you called them to find out whether they've received the email? No. Well, maybe they're waiting on you for something. You call the other side, they say exactly the same thing, and you're like, so we've wasted 4 weeks of a process when it could literally would have taken you 30 seconds to pick up a phone, answer the call, find out what's going on, resolve the issue, deal with it. And I don't know if it's a level of arrogance or laziness or a mixture of the two, but for me, from a business owner's point of view, and especially for them, is the quicker you get the deal through, the quicker you get paid, which means you can move on to the next deal, which means you get paid more. And I really didn't ever understand why they were so lazy or arrogant. It just didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it's kind of a well-known sick joke in the estate agency business that solicitors are the bane of your life.
100%, yeah.
Yeah, so lazy and inefficient, and they never answer the fucking phone.
I know, or emails, or...
Yeah, they might look at an email, or they might, or my favourite is they would ask you to post it.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
For some reason...
Especially for us in our modern day and age. Like, I don't think I've ever posted anything. I may have posted something, but I couldn't tell you what it was or when it was.
Well, I mean, you would have, but when was the last time you posted a letter?
Never.
Yeah, you post things, but it's just like I can just text you or email you. It's like, it doesn't cost anything. Solicitors aside, your point is... it's a very good point that you're making, because it ties back in with the principle of going above and beyond. So in any industry, any profession, wherever it is, you should strive to go above and beyond for your employer, for your customer.
Yep.
Now,
that's what creates the value as well.
I will caveat that by saying, for as long as it is recognised and rewarded.
Yeah.
Because
yes,
because it's in the company's interest to promote that culture, to go above and beyond. Because if you're in a customer service environment, then it means the customer has a better journey, and as a result of that, higher customer satisfaction will then lead to a higher customer expenditure, which works better for the company. Now, that's only worthwhile for the person providing that extra service and going above and beyond if that service is then recognised. So, for example, in my experience for retail, we had summer of 2021, peak season, peak wedding season. Combine that with it's a year after COVID where loads of weddings were cancelled. So it was an insane summer. Absolutely mental, craziest thing I've ever seen. That happened to be the exact same time when all of our retail systems crashed for 7 weeks. So we had no internet,
Jesus Christ.
No way of ordering stuff, no way of searching for products, for names, for information, for databases, for anything, nothing at all. So every other day, I had a screaming bride on the phone to me because there was no suits for him. So you're spending multiple days calling other stores, trying to find product this, trying to find product that, narrowing this down, narrowing that down, liaising with the bride, liaising with the groom, liaising with the family members when the other two are busy yelling at each other. And in that particular moment, for actual serious complaints that went unresolved or escalated, 1 out of that whole season. Because we dealt with all of them on the spot. Yeah. We empathised with them, we sympathised with them, we gave them the best possible service we could. So whether that was, giving them all their money back, give them extra stuff, some suits that arrived on the day, and we took turns driving them to the venue, picking them up from the venue, whatever. That was going above and beyond for all of us as part of that. And as a result, out of all of those fuck ups, only one customer was unhappy as the end result. The rest of them all sorted.
There's always going to be that small percentage of people, no matter what you do, you're not going to keep them happy.
Yeah,
no matter what.
And if my memory's right, for them in particular, that was because it was just an accumulation of problems. So I was with them. I was like, fair enough.
And sometimes there are going to be situations where you do everything you can, and no matter what, everything just keeps going wrong.
Yep.
It just
true as
always happens. And I don't know whether that's, as we said before, is negative mentalities, because obviously we co-create our reality, and if you've got someone on the other side who is so negative about everything, most problems tend to occur with the people that are always negative. Whether that's because they choose not to resolve the issues as they come up, and therefore they grow and you have more problems, or again, if you're battling against someone who's always creating problems rather than trying to solve them, and you're doing all the work your side, no matter what, their outside influence is going to have an effect, isn't it?
Very true. But the point I was making with the end of the story, which I also rudely interrupted, was we did all of that. We went above and beyond for everything, ensure the customers had a great journey, ensure the company minimised the amount of loss they had for revenue there. Did we get recognised for it? Did we get rewarded for it? No. So we didn't repeat that behaviour. Yeah. Even though that wasn't the best interest of the customer, when similar situations like that happen in the future, we didn't go as far. We still helped them, but we didn't do as much because we've done this before and we're not losing sleep like that again.
Yeah, there's a certain line, and you've got to be careful with this mentality where it leads you to. There's a certain line where you can help too much and it's not appreciated and it leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. However, that shouldn't put you off from being the best person you can be, because at the end of the day, as we said, you'll be recognised for your value. Not everyone's going to recognise that, but I would say a good 80, 90, even 95% will recognise the value. And if you can walk away and say, look, I've done the best I possibly can in that situation, even though everything went wrong, you're still happy with your performance. Whereas I think that's where a lot of people get sort of tied up. They have one bad experience with someone and they're like, oh, fuck that. I'm not doing that again. I'm not helping people out like that, blah, 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 blah. And all that happens is you're the one that declines. Your reputation declines and you're the one that ultimately ends up losing out. And that's the last thing you want.
I would agree. It depends how much stake you've got in that. So if you're in either of our levels where we are personally, 100%, because we are at a level where whatever happens to our respective businesses, we're still at a point where we are hands-on for everything. Mm-hmm. If it's if you're working for a county level operation or even a national level operation, where you are almost, if not effectively, a number, mm-hmm. There's not very much point, because if the business itself doesn't recognise the effort you're doing, there's no point in you sticking out for it that way, just because you have some sense of misplaced pride in the business there. If you're not going to get rewarded for it, yes, your customers will suffer because the excellent service you're giving them is not going to be there, because either you're going to stop doing it or you're going to leave that business. But ultimately, that's not your problem. That's the business's problem if they're not recognising you.
No, I agree there has to be a certain level of recognition for it. However, there's one thing that frustrates me the most is people that think they have to be recognised for every single good thing they do.
That's also true.
Is you shouldn't do it just for the recognition. You know, it's nice to have the recognition, but you should do it for your own personal sovereignty, really. I always try and reward my lads if they do better and go above and beyond for the business. But, I've had people that work for me before and they want to be recognised for doing the job to the basic level that they're paid for. And that frustrates me the most, because it's like, you're already recognised for that because that's what you come to work and get paid for.
Yeah.
But if you want to be recognised for something more, then you've got to do more.
Yeah.
And, I don't ever come into work and do as little as possible, because that's not going to help me, my business, my employees, or anything like that. You've got to always go above and beyond, whether you get the recognition or not. I understand the point you made, and I've heard it before, and again, I've got an argument for both sides. I totally agree that if you're working somewhere for years and you're constantly going above and beyond and you don't get recognised for it, you don't get the promotion, you don't get this, you don't get that, there comes a point where you have to throw the towel in. You have to be intelligent enough to know, right, look, I'm not being respected for the work I'm doing here, so I need to move on. Now, the grass is always greener, as they say, so you've got to be careful where you're going to be moving on to. However, if you've only done, if you want to be recognised because you've had 4 shit weeks and then you have 1 good week, I mean your 4 shit weeks sort of cancel out the good week. You've got to be, with everything, you've got to be consistent in the level you're doing it for. And if you've only been doing it for a couple of weeks, a couple of months, then yeah, you might not get the recognition. However, you lose the power in any situation when you refuse to be the best you can be. Because, for example, if you were working in a company and you knew you were the top salesman in all companies, no matter what, have power, because they know they can go, oh, well, I'll leave if I don't get it. Now, I'll use myself as an example. I worked for a company once, and between me and the manager, we were the top for sales. It was only a small sales team. I'm not going to act like it was a huge company and that I was fantastic and the best at everything. But we brought in a lot of sales. So when I said I was moving on, they did everything they can to make me stay. And then we had the person at the bottom who sold the least. She saw me and how they acted towards me when I said I was going to leave, and they did everything to make me stay. She played the same card, and they were like, okay, goodbye. And if I hadn't provided that value to the business, then they would have said the same thing to me. But because they knew they were going to lose out if I moved on, they did everything they can to keep me on. So that's why I always say you've got to provide the best value.
True. But in personal experience, from my experience, the previous business I was in, my direct superior outside of the store knew I was leaving, made zero effort to keep me, even though I had other peers of him contact me to try and make me stay, even though they had nothing to do with me. They just knew me. The person who was directly responsible to me made no effort at all. Now,
did you directly ask for what you wanted from that person above you?
Well, I mean, it's a little bit irrelevant because I didn't want anything. But there was no...
Exactly.
I'm just making the point that I'm saying that even though my manager in store asked me to stay, other contemporary to him in other stores begged me to, other than superiors of them begged me to as well. The one who had the decision over it didn't do shit.
Now,
so there's also the case of, I was rather good at my job, thank you very much, as you can attest to, actually. Yeah, you can attest to that.
I used to get all of my suits from that.
Yeah, I know.
I was very pleased with the service every time.
Exactly. Give him a nice little... Anyway.
Not from you.
Here we go. But yeah, so there's... I completely agree with your point. Unfortunately, you do get assholes at every level in any business.
Well, so my point I wanted to come back to is, in that business that I said I was leaving, now, they didn't immediately say to me, what can I do to make you stay?
Mm-hmm.
But after a day or two, I said to them, look, and I asked for what I wanted. I said, look, I will stay if you can do this. And they were sort of surprised, like, as if to say, like, oh, we thought he'd lost you, type of thing. We didn't realise there was anything we could do to keep you.
That's interesting.
And then because I asked, and they were like, well, there is a possibility he will stay. Okay, look, we'll do this, this, and this. And I think that, especially from the people above, there's an element of pride, or I don't want to use the word arrogance, because the people I'm talking about, they weren't arrogant in the way they were acting. I think it was more of like a surprise that it could have happened. But at the end of the day, we've got to do what's best for ourselves if we don't think we're progressing in the way we wish to be. But as soon as I asked, it was like, shit, we can keep him. Right, he wants this and this. Right, we'll give it to you.
I think...
And that's my point of saying, did you ask your superior what you wanted? If you didn't want it, then you can't expect him to...
No, but the point I was making, it spoke to the character of that person, that they made no effort at all.
Yeah.
More than anything else. Like, it's... Yeah, because I was an integral part of the team. But yeah, and just every decision that I've heard has been made by that same person since has been appalling across the whole board. So
also, if you are better than your superior, they will probably have a level of embarrassment of, shit, we're losing this person now. I don't know what to do. But they don't want to feel like because you're, below them in the pecking order, in the hierarchy, that they're coming to you begging.
And
that's why asking is the best way. And you sort of go to them and say, look, I really like the company, blah, blah, blah. I appreciate what you've done for me. I'd like to stay. Is there a way we can do this? And you put the power back in their hands, even though the power's in your hands.
And this particular person circles back to our previous point about being mature enough to recognise your mistakes.
Which most people aren't.
Well, yeah, and this person absolutely is not. So, and the reason they're in this shit, and the reason they're in this shithole situation is because they cannot recognise their mistakes or recognise when they screwed up. And to what you were saying, that if someone makes a mistake, they don't acknowledge it, but everyone else can see it, everyone's respect for that person goes way down. Case in point.
But I always say to my lads, like, I might not be able to reward you immediately for what you do. However, I will recognise and remember your efforts and service to this business, and I will give it to you as soon as I possibly can. However, if you look at one of the other employees who you see to be your peer, and you don't think he's doing very well, and you're doing more than him, and you turn around and go, oh, well, he's doing that, so I'm going to do the same as well. All that happens is I've got two useless dickheads now that I can't distinguish between them. However, if you keep your level up here, when the shit hits the fan, or I get someone who's better, well, this person is clearly outshining himself as being a dickhead. So as soon as I get the opportunity, or we have a recession or something like that, well, who do you think I'm going to pick? If you outshine the other person, you can live in the confidence that you're not the one that's going to get removed. However, if you put yourself down on the level with him or her, you can be a him or a her these days. But if you put yourself both on the same level, then you're both in the firing line, and it's a bit like, well, it could be me, could be him. But if you keep yourself to the your highest level you possibly can, it might not always work out like that, but I can guarantee 99 or 95% of the time you're going to be kept on.
I'm very glad you made the point about when it comes to recognition, asking for what you want, because that's what's going to lead on to saying that if you do a fantastic job, do all of this stuff that's brilliant for the company, yourself, and the customer, and then just sit back and expect to be recognised, you're going to be so sorely disappointed. Not because the business necessarily or your superior is not aware; they could be busy, or maybe it is. Sorry, it's not that they don't care. They could literally just not have noticed or seen that exactly because they're so busy, or because they're doing this, they're doing that, or they're like, okay, great, I don't have to worry about this person because they're doing all this. That I'm confident then that's handled, and I've got this to do, I've got this to do, I've got that to do, I've got this to do. You don't know what's going on with your boss.
So let me guarantee one thing is, I have it in various aspects of life that I've worked through, whether you're a manager or superior to someone or something like that. The people who tend to be in the hierarchy below you always assume they're doing more than you and that they're more stressed than you are. Let me guarantee you one thing. The lower you're on the hierarchy, the less stressed you are and the less you've got going on. So your superior will be going through more than you, whether he's showing it or not. So going back to your point, that's why it's important that you raise these issues to them, because they're not thinking at your level of thought. They're thinking, I've got this, and this going on. That seems fine because he's not saying anything, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to ensure I get these done. Yeah,
and what you're saying about asking. Now, obviously, you don't do this after doing one thing and you expect to get a fucking pat on the head and your dick sucked. You do it from consistency over time. And if you wanted to put a promotion, for example, you would go to your superior and say, look, I've been here for 6 months. In that time, I've increased the positive customer service review by 12%. I've added X amount of revenue to us, blah 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 blah. Come with stats, figures, and statistics about what you have done and how you've improved since you've been here, and then you ask for a promotion or more money or whatever. But don't just say, I want a promotion. You have to say, what do I have to do to get X?
Yeah.
Considering I've done all of this already.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I was taught to get what you want. Or it was how I was taught actually to get the business. What do I have to do to get the business? What do I have to do to get the vow? What do I have to do to get your house, to get the listing, to get the sale, to get the reference, to get the whatever?
And in any business, I guarantee the best way for you to progress, because we are a business at the end of the day, or the business you're working in, is to bring in more business. That's the way you can create the best value for yourself as an employee. Whether you're in a sales role or not, bring in a business. Because if you've got 4 people working for you, 1 doesn't bring in any business, or 3 don't bring in any business, and you bring in consistently business for that company, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer that you're going to progress through, because you care enough about that company. And a lot of employees have it is the employee mentality, is they don't care about the business, which confuses me, because you know, often you're working there 8-10 hours a day, 5 days a week. If you don't care about the business, you're wasting your time. And that reflects in your attitude and how you act on a day-to-day basis. Whereas if you love what you do, even if you don't necessarily love the physical job, but if you show that you have some type of loyalty to the business and you care about the company you work for, your boss is going to see that. And again, when it comes to either promotions or when the shit hits the fan, they're going to keep you on or progress you because you show that you actually care about the business. Whereas some people, you know, they turn up bang on time, they do as little as possible, clock watching, and then they're out the door straight away. And you're providing the least amount of value to the business. I want to go back to your point of, I've never worked for a huge corporate company, but I've worked for fairly large businesses. And the thing that frustrates me the most is when people say, oh, I'm just a wheel or a cog in the machine. Yes, you are. I think it the other way. Yes, you're a cog in a machine. But if an engine, which is very complex, is missing one part, doesn't work. So you are integral to the operation of that engine, of that business. So you can see it either way. I don't understand how you can see it in a negative manner, because especially in a company, they don't employ you just because they want to. They employ you because you've got a specific role to undertake. And if you're not undertaking that role to your best of your ability, someone will come along sooner or later and you'll be replaced. But if you're the best possible person you can be in that situation, as the business grows and progresses, you're going to elevate with it.
Just wanted to see if you had more points there.
Well, the point on that was, again, going back to our previous point, is be the best you possibly can be all day, every day. You know, you're going to have off days every now and again. However, if you use it as a part of an engine, if you're sluggish and slow, you're going to be replaced for a better moving part.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're working in a environment which is still, while it's large, it's still in a business where you know pretty much everyone. I completely agree with that statement. I think I don't know what number it'd be, but I think once you get over a certain size, people to a point, you go past Dunbar's number where you can't count above 150 people throughout a business.
I mean, I'd argue for that, because even if you're in a huge company, you can start at the bottom, and because it's already a big company, you've got the trajectory already to elevate up through it, because there are those positions available. If you show you're the best at it, you can move into the next position, learn that position, be the best at that one, move to the next position, learn, and you can do that, you know, relatively quickly. Unless
you're in a business or an industry where those roles are filled already,
but
hang on, and there are. And as a result of that, it's quite like the army. The army doesn't create roles based on ability. The army does not promote based on ability. It promotes based on availability of those roles.
Yes. And my to build on that, I say it to my lads all the time, is, we might not get the job straight away. I do a lot of cold calling and speaking to people, but do you know how many customers have called me and say, look, you called me a year, 2 years ago about providing us with your services, and the supplier we use, he's just gone downhill. They're rubbish. So after 2 years of either getting the business on or even just making one phone call, they've remembered me and come to use us.
Yeah,
and
very true.
I say to the lads all the time, it might not happen instantly, but if we keep doing what we're supposed to be doing to the best of our ability, it will be recognised and people will eventually switch over. Now, my business model myself is I actually provide an extra service than everybody else in the industry for the same, if not cheaper. And I got that from Elon Musk, is you want to provide the best possible product for the cheapest possible price, so that when you come up against your competitor and they go, oh, well, they're charging me more or the same price, but we actually get more from this, everybody's going to go, fuck it, let's go here then, because they're the same price or cheaper and we get extra value from it. So anybody with half a brain is going to go, oh, I'm going to go use them then. Yeah.
You're doing the absolute best that way, because then it's a
value proposition.
Yes, absolutely. And then you'll, through the very nature of taking that slight hit compared to your competitor, you'll then make up for it in volume.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
and
everything's a volume gain, no matter what it is. Even in Rolex, they're slightly different, but you want the volume. There's millions and billions of people out there, and they've all got money. So if you can provide the best value, and obviously the cheaper a product is, the more available it is to everybody else.
Which again, volume, the numbers just go up on everything.
And once you've got 1 million customers, you put your price up by £1, £2, £5, whatever it is, which would be a minimal amount to most people. You increase your revenue by, well, let's say you used a million, you've increased it by 1 million. Do you know what I mean?
Well,
simple maths.
Well, what's the typical in deliberate inflation for products? 3%, 5% for like price changes.
Usually it's just in line with, the CPI inflation.
No, I'm just wondering because you've got some in places where the demand is very high. Companies can put the price up a certain amount because the demand is very high.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
The supply and demand is that matrix as well. So if demand's up, supply's down, you put the price up, and then vice versa the other way.
It's like the Amazon. What Amazon Prime was like? Was it £3.99 or £4.99 10 years ago, when they had a lot less customers? Now they've got millions and millions more. I think it was at £8.99 now. Obviously that will have gone up with inflation. However, once you've got the infrastructure in place, the cost to continually run it and upgrade it is a lot less than physically setting it up. So once you've got them all in place, you can increase the price, and also your revenue's massively increased, even though you're effectively providing the same service.
Yeah, there's no operational change.
Yeah.
You're just putting the price up. Yeah, it's an instant
and with
increase
economies
of
of
profit.
scale, the larger you are, the cheaper it is to produce stuff, because obviously if you buy in bulk, you get it cheaper per unit, etc., etc., but you're still charging the same amount, if not more.
It all comes back to psychology at a certain point, because you've got the psychology of sale and value from both perspectives there. So if we take Amazon as an example, you have the consumers will go, oh, that's incredible value for money because it's only $3.99. So people go, value for money, let's take it. And Amazon will go, okay, I can prey upon people's need to find value, and then because of that, and take a hit to begin with. It's not going to be a big money maker for us. We'll leave that in the background and do other things for the time being. And then over time, that's a cruise until they get it all, and they're like, okay, now we can step it up.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it's the same sort of model as, I think Tesco tried it. Tesco was doing it for a while, where they were. I remember hearing years ago when Tesco was at its peak, and they had their own like fleet of planes, because they were undercutting all of the like family, like mum and dad corner shops, So like all like I think Budgers was about to close at some point, and all of these little shops were closing off because Tesco was just so much cheaper. And the business model was for them to come in, undercut everyone. Everyone would close, and then Tesco could put the price back up again, which is the same thing that, not Uber. No, it might have been Uber actually. No, I think it was Uber actually. That was the same business model until the deal got done for whatever reasons. But that was the same reason that they were coming underneath, closing down all the black cabbies, and then they were going to put the prices up.
Well, that's exactly what J.D. Rockefeller did at the turn of the 19th century.
With the trains?
No, oil.
Oil.
He purposely, when there was, hundreds, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of different oil companies, he gained a monopoly on it by purposely selling oil below the cost of production. So that all the smaller firms could not keep up. They went out of business, he bought them up, bang, he's got a monopoly, puts the price up. So if you can afford to do that,
and take a loss for a certain amount of time.
Exactly, yeah. You do it for 5-10 years. If you look at the long game. And going back to my value thing as well, is once you provide better value for your customers, say, you put your price up and you've got 1,000, 2,000 units out there or something with all these companies, and they think, is it worth us moving to a different supplier for £1 change? Well, we know this guy's got a proven track record of being able to do what is required. We could save ourselves a couple of grand or whatever, but we could also cost ourselves far more if we lose the customers because we choose a bad supplier.
Precisely. So the value you're getting
for an inferior product. Exactly.
So the value you're getting by remaining with a company that is charging you more than they were previously, but they're still providing that excellent service.
And they've got a proven track record.
Exactly. That's way worth it going that way, because people will pay more provided they're getting quality for it, provided they get that extra service and everything.
Apple being the perfect example.
Yeah.
I think my Samsung was 500 quid.
Mm-hmm.
That was last year, but 10 years ago,
90.
Probably about 10 years ago, I paid for an Apple computer £1,800. But it's still...
That was 10 years ago.
Probably.
Fuck.
Can't be long. I mean, it's got to be close to it.
Well, they're about this. Well, because I think that's how much I paid, and that was 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that is for the same MacBook as that, but the one with the bar. So it was like as soon as that generation turned to that one.
I think I've got the bar.
Yeah, mine's got like a touchscreen
Yeah,
bar.
Same. Yeah.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's the one I got.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Cool.
I got it like when it first came out.
Got ya. Yeah.
And it's got to have been 10 years, if not less. But still, because it was such a high quality product at the time, it's still fantastic.
Yeah.
And it was worth the investment.
Oh, no question.
Because with inflation, forgive me to interrupt, that £1,700.
Recurring fucking theme here, isn't it?
Even though you paid probably the same amount as me,
yeah.
With inflation, that £1,700 would be £2,500 now, or close to it.
Yeah, and I think, that's remarkable. Actually, that's still pretty much the same.
Exactly. Yeah.
Fascinating. Are monopolies illegal?
They are. Yeah, it's illegal to have monopoly, and it was because of the whole.
Because of him.
J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
J.P. Morgan on the banking. And, Andrew Carnegie and J.D. Rockefeller.
It makes sense. Yeah, if you undercut everyone, because where Tesco failed is when Aldi and Lidl came to the country. Because they already started down there, but their products were superb and still are superb, and they are still so affordable.
Well, they got their big break from using unbranded products, or they were branded products, but they were effectively their own.
They were brilliant because they took exactly branded products as they were, took the labels off, put their own labels on, but in the exact font, exact color scheme as the branded products, which is absolute genius.
Well, it's like
because they're just taking the piss out of it.
It's like the whole Colin the Caterpillar.
Yeah,
Cuthbert.
It's Cuthbert. Yeah, or Helmer's mayonnaise is like Halbert or something. It's so good because it's brilliant.
The thing I noticed, Percy Pigs.
Yeah.
Is they had exactly the same product, but they were called Leo the Lions. But at first they were yellow, and then when the whole Cuthbert thing, because obviously lions are yellow.
Yeah.
When the whole Cuthbert thing started kicking off, they switched the colour to pink.
Nice.
So they are exactly the same.
Copy exact.
As Percy Pickford. They're still called Leo the Lions,
Yeah.
but you've never seen a pink lion, have you?
Well, and they are in so Aldi and Lidl. First of all, they are sibling corporations in the fact that they are owned by brothers.
Are they?
Yeah.
So are you sure? Because there's an Audi and an Audi Zoot. So there's two Audis.
I
that are owned
believe.
by siblings, and there's some, in like East Europe or something like that. That's one brother operates there, and then the other brother operates. In the other side.
I believe, and I could be wrong. But again, admit your mistakes. I believe Aldi and Lidl are brothers. I believe because they're basically the same thing, which is brilliant. And they are in America. What are they in America? It's not Walmart, but it's another one like that because Walmart is entirely American. But it's another one like that, but it's just named something completely different, even though it's the exact same business model. But they're fantastic.
Also, did you know Walmart owns Asda?
And Amazon owns what's on beginning with S, which is
Sainsbury's?
No, the other one. Well, no, it owns Morrison's, beg your pardons.
Does it?
Amazon owns Morrison's, yeah.
Jesus Christ. Didn't know that.
They're probably I would not be shocked to know that Amazon would be a lot like Unilever, where they just own everything. Because Unilever itself doesn't actually do anything; it just owns everything.
Yeah, but when you can go around buying the competition, then
so good. Again,
you can control the pricing that way.
That's another genius market as well, because you've got Unilever who own, I think it's like 4 different types of butter.
Really?
Yeah. So it's not. So it's like Lurpak. I can't believe it's not butter, and like 2 others.
So a monopoly is not illegal if there is no other competitors.
But by its very definition of being a monopoly, you would have eliminated the competitors.
Exactly.
Jesus.
So it's only illegal if it's
trying to be a monopoly?
Yes. Right. To the level where other people can't compete with it. And
I see.
But, it has to go through all those levels to the point where the governments turn around and go, hey, you're a monopoly, now we've got to disband you.
Okay, so just because a company creates a unique product does not mean it's a monopoly, provided that it is possible for someone else to make a competitive item.
Exactly.
I understand.
However, if you own the monopoly on something, you're going to put your prices up to as high as you possibly can, because obviously you earn more money from it because you're the only one producing that product. So you'd be stupid not to charge more if you can get away with it, which obviously leaves the space for a competitor to come in,
undercut you and take that business.
Exactly, yeah.
But I would imagine then the monopoly then would be less of a case of the pricing of the product itself to keep away competitors. It would be the acquisition of the items to make the product. That would be what makes it a monopoly, because they're holding on to it. So, for example, if you had diamond mines where they're owned by a handful of people, if they were just owned by one person, they're physically guarding the supply. Yeah. So that is a monopoly, because literally no one else bar that group or family could get to the supply.
Which is actually a thing.
Yeah.
With diamonds.
Yeah, but it's like 6 or 7 families or something. Yeah.
And they don't work together to keep the prices high, because that's illegal, of course.
Yeah, obviously. But then equally, with diamonds, there isn't actually a shortage.
No.
They just keep a hold on the neck. Yeah. To make the prices higher.
It's like with anything, supply and demand. If there's an oversupply of something and the demand is low, the price has to drop for the supplier to sell the product. Whereas if you restrict the supply and increase the demand, whichever way is that, through advertising or making it a scarce product that people want to create the value, then you can increase the price.
So that
which is with Rolex is happening at the moment. Is it's impossible to get hold of them. Even in the shops, they barely have any available. So if you want to get hold of a Rolex, you pretty much have to buy it on the secondary market, and obviously the secondary market is much higher than if you were to buy it retail.
Which is crazy.
Pretty sure, I'm sure there's other products out there like Ferrari and stuff like that. But for example, if you wanted to buy a Rolex, which is like 10 grand, if you wanted to buy it on the secondary market, it'd be 15 grand. Because you can't get hold of them.
Or any limited edition item, once it has sold out from the retailer, it's then anyone's guess about what sort of price it's going to be. Exactly. Or then the market will then dictate what the price will be. If you take on the market of the public eBay auctions. That the interest on that will dictate whatever it sells for, and the subsequent value of the item, regardless of what price it starts on for.
And that's another reason you want to provide value and a superior product. Let's go back to people in general. If you are better than the people you work with or all of your competitors, you're going to create high value for yourself, which means you can ask for more money. Whether you're an employee or you want to go and work for yourself, the more value you provide, the higher you can charge, or the more you can demand for payment. Simple supply and demand.
Endlessly fascinating. I wonder what the equivalent would be for sort of public speaking in regards to supply and demand, because the one I can think of off the top of my head that would encapsulate this would be David Goggins.
Go on.
Because he, by choice, he doesn't do podcasts. He's only done Rogan a few times and Chris Williamson. So Chris, when he turned up on Chris's, that's the first one he's done in like 3 or 4 years, which is very interesting. But that makes it so much more enticing and interesting to listen to, because it's been so long since he spoke on a platform like that.
And he will say it's because he's got other bits that he's going on with, and which I agree with for his type of personality. I think he gets up in the morning, does like 2 hours of running, then an hour of gym. He meditates for 2 hours a day. He stretches for 2 hours a day. And he said on the Chris Williams podcast, he said, "Look, I haven't got time to do all this other stuff, and if I do all this other stuff, it takes me away from who I am that creates my value." Now, don't get me wrong, I think there's not an ulterior motive, but restricting his supply to the podcast obviously increases his demand, which is going to be positive for him. But I think that probably pushes more people to buy his books, because they don't need to get their fix. But if they want to get their fix, they have to get it through that avenue rather than on these free podcasts.
But again, he has you can still get his free content from his social media, because he's still on that, because he doesn't. It's basically he just has a guy who just films him while he's doing his stuff, and then he doesn't have David just like, right, you deal with all of it, because he doesn't have to put any other effort into it. It's what his thoughts are anyway. Because with Goggins, it's his main philosophy is like, I'm not doing all these fucking podcasts like you'll see these people do podcast tours. He says, I'm not doing it because how can I encourage and incentivize people to be the savages that they can be if I'm not living that life still? Which is why he was jumping out of helicopters, putting out fires and shit, and doing all these ultra marathons and everything. He was like, how can I tell people how to be a savage if I'm not savage anymore? I was a savage, but that means nothing now. And
that's what hit me the hardest when I was reading that podcast. Watching that podcast.
I do love to read a podcast.
I love it. Is that he said, just because you've done it before doesn't mean you're still that person. So for me to go out there and talk about these things, I've got to continually do it to make sure I'm still that person that I talk about and preach. And that goes back to the consistently learning and progressing and being a better person. Because say you were a professional tennis player 15 years ago, but you haven't played tennis for 15 years. Well, you're kind of irrelevant now, because the market has moved on from you.
Yeah, very true. Well, there's a new tennis champion now.
Yes, I saw it. He's only like 20, isn't he?
Yeah, I think he's Greek, maybe.
I'm not really interested in tennis. It just came up because
I'm not either.
That's all over the news at the moment.
But he's the first new name in 20 years, because it has been cycling between Nadal, Federer, Murray and Djokovic. Yeah. It's just been those four, one of those four for the last 20 years, whereas now it's a new guy who's taking it. He's number one, which I think is significant in that respect, because it is someone new, and it's been so long since they had a new name on the circuit.
Well, that gives a perfect example of value as well, because let's use that as an example. You've got the younger guy who's not known, but he's shown his superiority over other people by beating the champions. And to sponsors, Djokovic and stuff like that, they will have a certain level that they will ask for, because they've provided that value to sponsors and all those bits and bobs. But this new chap is going to provide better value to a sponsor. One, because they can go in and lowball him because he's new. He's not going to be asking the same amount as these guys. And two, he's got 20 years of growth, or let's say 5 years of growth and progression. However, he's probably got 20 years of marketability. Whereas Djokovic and Federer and all those people, I mean, Federer, is he still playing?
He's not anymore.
But he's not playing, so
yeah. So he's not useful.
He's not useful. His value is going down because he doesn't play. And once you're out of the game, that's it. Your value starts going down.
And Andy Murray, Nadal's going to be going down as well because he's getting older. Murray will be going down because of injury. So yeah, it would be all for this. Just be Djokovic and then this new guy to play for. But then Djokovic as well. I remember last year he was not allowed to play in Australia because he hadn't got the jab.
Yeah. But it's what it comes back to is, even if you don't win the first time, or you don't get that promotion the first time, people are always dropping out of the game above you, dropping out of the hierarchy above you. So if you choose to be a useless twat, you're never going to be in for the runnings for when these people drop out. Going back to what I said before is, if we continue to provide the high level of value that we do to our customers, when another firm fucks up or does something wrong or sells out or whatever the reason is, we're the shoe-in for them to call us. And there's nothing that gives me greater pleasure as when you start a business, you're out there cold calling, you've got to provide extra value to your customers. Again, 90% of the time, you don't see the recognition. There is a recognition there, but they don't overtly tell you. But when people are calling you and saying, look, I was on a site and your units were great, I really liked your service, etc., and they call you out of the blue and want to use you, that is the recognition you get from providing that quality of service. And if you don't provide that quality of service, you're never going to get a call. That's why you always want to be the best you possibly can be in those situations, so that people actively come searching for you. And they will, because as I said, people make mistakes, they fuck up, they drop their level of service or how they look after their customers. And if you're at the highest ability you can be, you're going to get a call.
That, my friend, is a beautiful way to wrap up.
Exactly.
There you go. Well, thank you everyone for listening to episode 16 of the Just Discourse Podcast. Remember to like and subscribe so we can keep doing this lovely thing for you people. Mr. Max,
take care.
It's a pleasure, my friend.
See you soon.